everyone. Welcome to the Glow Zoomcast. I'm here today with Kristin Mejia-Greene. She's an apprenticing home birth midwife and the founder of Homeland Heart Birth and Wellness Collective. As a doula and birth educator, she's based in Nashville, Tennessee. Kristin, it's so nice to be talking to you today.
Hey, thanks for having me. So happy to be here.
Now, I want to give you guys a little background on how we met. Kristin emailed me this summer. We were both in the heat of the pandemic, of managing all of the cultural fallout from Mr. Floyd's murder. And there was just a lot happening sort of in the cultural soup. And Kristin emailed and said, hey, I'm really interested in using the birth deck. We love this tool. We want to use this tool more. And how do you want to, do you want to collaborate in some way so that we can have more of this in our collective, in our birth and wellness collective? And it started a correspondence that I've really come to appreciate, and we've gotten to know each other better, really even in the last month. Kristin, tell us a little bit about how you came to this work and then how you heard about the birth deck.
Yeah, so I came to doula work after the birth of my son in 2014. And really after realizing that the birth experience that I had was not normal for Black women. And also with the birth experience, there was the breastfeeding experience that I was having with my son that just was not a normal experience for Black women. So I kind of started digging deeper into local statistics and the state statistics here in Tennessee. And that's how I got to maternal health care. When I started doula work, I was a little, I'm going to say confused, because what normally happens in doula trainings is that you go to a doula training, you're, introduced to the basics of birth, and then you are sent back to whatever your region or area of practice will be. And then you kind of just like, okay, now what do I do? And then, you get your first birth and you're thinking about all the things you talked about in your class, and you're just kind of like, I don't know what's going on. So I kind of got into just searching for supplemental tools that I could use in my doula work that would help me keep some really important positions or practices at the front of my mind to be able to assist my clients. So I bought a birth deck for my private practice and found that, and that was maybe about 2 years ago, I bought a birth deck for myself. And it really was one of the more important childbirth education tools that I carried in my bag. And so while I'm not a certified childbirth educator, this gave me the opportunity to kind of talk through a couple of things with my clients that would be important to them. Now, fast forward to me working or starting the collective. We trade community-based doulas versus your certified birth doula, DONA situation. And so I felt like the birth deck would be a really important tool to help community-based doulas have another tool that they could relate with their clients on. The demographic that we serve is historically underserved, historically underrepresented. We work 100% with Black women and usually in low-income communities. And so one of the things we really take into consideration are literacy rates in the zip codes that we serve. And so instead of having the uncomfortable conversation with someone, asking them if they can read, we love the birth deck because it's pictures. So it's like, it's really easy to say, oh yeah, that looks like it could be comfortable. I'll go with that, So we're really grateful for the ability to use the birth deck in that sense, especially in our community work.
That's awesome. And it means a lot to me to hear that. And so thank you for sharing that with me and with whoever is lucky enough to get to watch this. Because it is 100% my goal with the deck was to bring the tools of birth work to everybody, because in the end, we know, I think I can speak on behalf of both of us, that to be a good birth support provider, you don't actually have to be trained. You just need experience and you need knowledge. And the knowledge can come from somewhere. And you don't even really need experience. You start with the knowledge and then you build on that. And something that has actually come up with a number of the doulas and midwives I've spoken to on the Zoomcast has been the idea that support always used to come from within the communities. The idea that we have to hire external support is so new, and that, you know, I would be really interested to hear from your perspective, what do you think that comes from in American culture, and where would you like to see it go?
So it's really interesting that you say that, because in my circle, we've recently been having this conversation, and really this, it's more of an awareness and a mantra that we're starting to work in the parameters of, and it is that as Black people, we deserve luxury as well. I think historically in America, we have been the helpers as Black people. So it is very normal for white people to outsource their help, right? All the way down to breastfeeding your own children, right? White people outsource that at some point. White people were outsourcing bathing. You know, you have someone come in your home to bathe you because you don't know how to do that yourself. So for white people, it is a historical privilege that has you in this space of, oh, I need help. Let me find somebody that will do that for me, right? And those people came from our villages where we were helping each other, but now I need to make a living for my family and someone is outsourcing my expertise. So I'm going to go this way so that I can work with the white people over here, giving me less time to deal with my own community and my own family over here. And then considering the lack of resources and the lack of wealth that's in the Black community, I'm sure it's a hard decision to make, but it's not rocket science to say, well, you know, I need to make some money versus not making money. So again, going back to the mantra, you know, I think it's probably going to be one of my mantras of 2021, that I deserve luxury and assistance as well. I was talking to a girlfriend of mine that recently found a laundry service where she could drop her laundry off and pick it up, and it's folded and ready to be put away. And she was like, you know, I had my reservations. I kind of felt some kind of way, you know, and for us, we always use this, like, I felt like I was real bougie. And I'm like, sweetie, that's not bougie. That's you recognizing that you need a little help, recognizing that there is a service that provides said help. And if it does something for your sanity, for your household, you know, whatever, then hey, you deserve that. This is a mom of 5. Honey, you deserve to have somebody else washing your clothes.
Totally. And what else can you be doing with that time? What
exactly?
You know, like what, you know, we were talking about this in a conversation earlier before we were recording about, you know, when you come to a point, even in your business, where you realize that there are things you should be doing that aren't the minutia. Hang on, my internet just got weird. I'm just going to stop it and start it. Okay, cool. That there's a point at which you realize that there is something that you need to be doing for your organization, your family, you know, whatever that is of a greater order of need. And it's important to prioritize that, because that is where your power resides. That's where your strength resides. You know, somebody else is capable of doing your laundry possibly even better than you. So
it's very possible. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. I'm so interested in this. I love this different take. So what I'm hearing is that hiring a doula, which we can consider a luxury, is something that we should not feel in any way bad about. What do you think about this? I'm going to tell you one of my feelings, and I would love to hear your take on it. I think that it is like, I think that it is irresponsible, and I think that it is faulty that the American medical system has chosen, kind of by like pressure of the social movement and of trends to place the safety and fixing of the birth system, like this, you know, the safety of mothers and the fixing of the birth system on doulas. So I had a conversation with a nurse who's also a doula and a lactation consultant, who's a friend of mine named Yael Bornstein. You should go check it out. Kristin, I think you'd really enjoy the conversation. And it was at the beginning of COVID. And she was saying, like, doulas aren't essential, and doulas should not be going into hospitals. If we were to just fully talk about this in a vacuum, like, why are doulas necessary for moms to not have traumatic birth experiences? These are underpaid individuals. These are people who don't carry insurance, who are disenfranchised from the medical establishment. They're like these third-party people who aren't protected in any way, who are tasked with advocating, with educating, and with like standing guard for these clients. Like, why don't we just fix the system?
Man, this is loaded.
Right?
Okay. So I'm going to say that statement in itself is loaded in privilege. Loaded. It's laced with privilege. Okay. And I'm going to say this. It is because those of us who do this work, like really do the work, and maybe I'm speaking for myself, and I'm pretty sure that I'm not, but we were tasked with this work by our ancestors. So no one came to me and said, hey, the Black birth community is in trouble. You need to go save it. That's not what happened. I started rolling into these statistics and understand, and then it, you know, things kind of grab a hold of you, and no matter how much you wrestle with it, you can't get out of it. And so that's what brings me here to the work that I do, that is not for profit work, because I understand that it needs to be done. Now, the other part of that is that for Black women, racism, for Black anybody, for anyone of color, racism in itself is traumatic. And what is vaguely irresponsible of us as a society is that we honestly think that a class that we task white people with taking, let's take some implicit bias training, we think that takes the place of relatable healthcare. As a white nurse, there are just things you will not be able to get through to a Black woman. It just is not possible. You cannot do that. You also, as a white person, cannot make the assumption that your 10 magical fingers are way more magical than another woman of color in the role of saving her own community, right? What is also irresponsible then is that we have again and again and again and again tasked Black people with saving Black communities that we did not ravage. That is the issue here. I don't have one problem being the advocate in someone's birth room, because I understand what the trouble is. And so instead of fixing the let's not task doulas with doing this, that, and the third, let's understand that doulas are valuable pieces in the birth role. And the reason being is that I'm going to see my client 2 to 3 times more than she's going to see her doctor. The nurse that she sees, she's only going to meet one time. That's no shade to nurses, right? Labor and delivery nurses are wonderful, a lot of them. But that's a whole nother conversation itself. Which kind of rolls into this, because if you're doing something that you feel like you were tasked with, you probably shouldn't do it. And you're putting other people's lives at risk when you feel like, oh, I was tasked with this and this is not fair. Ultimately, you should see the disparity in what's going on, and the advocacy should be happening at the legislative level, right? That's another piece that we work on in the collective, is we're working with legislature. This is an everybody problem, but we can't it has to start at the healthcare, it has to start
and
at
that's
the
her point.
administration.
Her point is like, cool, we can focus all day long on like doulas and how doulas need to be trained and what certification does a doula need to have to be called a doula, and should doulas be allowed in the hospital during COVID or not. Like, in the end, if women are petrified to go into birth without a doula, there's a problem with the system that is so deep and twisted that is, she's not saying doulas should go away. That's how she makes her income, the primary way. She's saying there is such a higher order problem here that to instead focus on like, on all these white people running around being like, oh no, my doula's gone. Like, yeah, be pissed about that, but instead be pissed that you're so scared to go to the hospital without somebody there as your bodyguard. Like, that's insane. How does that not occur to people? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
especially people with power. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think the problem is, so here's the problem this is where we are.
Yeah.
It has occurred to people. Right? And in America, historically, when it comes to bodies of color, female bodies of color, we're great with the realization. It's the movement that we can't get, right? It is everybody wants to write an article about what's going on. And now we got 18 million articles about Black maternal mortality, and everybody can say the sentence, right? What's the sentence? Black women die at 3 to 4 times the rate of white women. We all got that down. Thank you, Sally. We appreciate it. We got that part. So now it is what do we do? And now then we go back to the people that have been tasked with the work, right? So we take the collective, for instance, Homeland Heart, Birth, and Wellness Collective, and all these different states. So Tennessee, for instance, is one of the 50 states that are mandated to have a maternal mortality review task force to set aside certain funding to save the problem, to fix the problem, to do whatever. I sit in these review meetings. I listen. We're always talking about, this is the problem. Women of color, Black women, blah, 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 blah. We apply for the grants. It's a no. No, we don't know. We didn't mean you go save Black people. We meant somebody else. And if somebody else is not going to try to save the problem, then we're just going to have this money sitting over here. But there's not a chance in hell that we're going to allow a group of Black women to help a group of Black women, the same group of Black women that we're sitting around having meetings about quarterly. In fact, we just want to have meetings about it. Let's not actually fix the problem.
Right.
Because if we just keep having meetings about it, then at least at the state level, we can report back and say, well, we're talking about it.
Yeah, we did it. We met. We talked. Look at our meeting notes.
Look
our
at the agenda. Look at the notes. And we even had some community speakers. We know what's going on in the community. We're not going to fund it. We're really proud of these organizations that are, picking up our slack, but we're not going to fund them.
Right. But we'll definitely broadcast that we're involved with them so that we get the Yep. So tell me more about what you guys have been doing recently that's part of that initiative. What have you guys, Homeland Heart is such a unique organization in the way that it's like the prongs of your program are multitudinous. They go everywhere. And one time you said to me, well, what do we do? It's hard for me to even create like a program statement because we do what needs to be done. And
the program statement. I think that just might be the program statement, right?
Done. And tell us a little bit about what makes Homeland Heart so unique.
Lots of things. So I will start with the fact that, again, we are a collective of Black doulas, birth workers, metaphysical healers, massage therapists, just the whole nine. Focused on women's health, and we only serve Black women. So that's it's been a big hang up when it comes to government funding, obviously, and we've been, I've sat in meetings and people have called me racist, said that my program is, segregational or discriminatory or whatever have you. I have my rebuttals for that. And so I will unapologetically say that, yes, our program is segregated. Sure, it can be viewed as discriminatory, but if those are the words that you sit in when you hear that Black women only serve Black women, I need you to look deeply in the ugly history of America and understand that had segregation and discrimination not been a part of our ugly history so many years ago, there wouldn't be a need for a segregated program like ours to fix one focal point of society. So there's that, and you can DM me if you have more questions about how I feel about that.
I hope,
because we can go for days on that.
I hope that there is nobody watching this that needs further explanation on that. Like, maybe you need to go back and listen to some of the other.
Feel free to YouTube a couple Malcolm X speeches, and then we can talk.
I could give you some reading resources too, in case anyone out there needs some.
So that's one of the biggest uniquenesses of us. The other one I will say is that what we do is we train community-based doulas. So again, that is different from a certification program. Well, it is different from one of your major certification programs like DONA or CAPA, or even the National Black Doulas Association. What we seek to do with the training, with training members of the community, is provide relatable care. So we serve 7 zip codes in our county, in Nashville's Davidson County, where the Black infant mortality rate either meets or exceeds the US national average. So what we've done is go through these 7 zip codes and ask for help from members of these communities that know the layout of the land. They know what resources are available. They can tell you what pediatrician they go to. They can tell you, they can tell you about the area. They can really relate on a different level than, hey, I'm gonna go hire a doula to help me through my birth, right? So we make sure that we're pulling members of the community into the program. We don't require any, previous knowledge of birth. We don't even require you to have given birth. Most doula training programs don't. And then when they come to us for training, we focus on, so another reason why the birth deck is so important is because with the crisis, the maternal mortality crisis that we're experiencing in Black communities, I honestly can say that I don't have a lot of time in the training that we do to dive deeply into the basics of birth and positions and all these things. So we make sure to provide resources, books included, they have required readings. We want to provide the birth decks for our doulas, so they can look through these things, and it's easy, self-directed learning outside of their training class. We dive deeply into disparities and statistics and what we're facing here in Nashville. I do work with administrators at the major hospitals here in town. So there are 4 major hospitals that our moms give birth in here in town, and I'm working with their administration to make sure that these hospitals are safe places for our moms. In the interim, that gives me the opportunity to work with the doulas that we're bringing in to say, hey, if you go over to Vanderbilt, these are some of the problems that you may encounter. And it's sad, okay? So let me say that I'm literally telling you that I don't have time to talk to these women about the basics of birth, because I have to warn them about the experience and the racism and the treatment that you as the doula, not even the client, this is you as the doula. These are some things that you may deal with when you're in the labor and delivery room at this hospital or that hospital or this hospital. We also talk to our doulas about providers that we consider safe providers. These are people that, we have a list. Our collective has a list of what we call safe OBs, midwives, And then safe pediatricians. Are they breastfeeding tolerant? Are they pro-vax? Are they anti-vax? Do they care whether or not you vax? You know, just the whole thing, because this is the idea of community support, right? You can ask your doula that has kids, hey, what pediatrician do you go to? Do they make you vaccinate your kids? Do they not make you vaccinate your kids? Do they make you do this? Do they make you do that? We have these resources, and we're able to provide them to these doulas up front to say, here, these are ways that we want to make sure that you're connected to the community so that you can make sure your mom is connected to the community. The last thing that makes us like super duper 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 unique is that Homeland Heart was built on, the Homeland Heart doula model was built on the idea that it takes a village to raise a child, not only a child, but a mother as well. The problem that I was coming in contact with this particular cliche is that while it is extremely true, it's hard to manifest. So we tell women it takes a village to raise a child, but we do not point her in the direction of the village that she's going to need to raise this child, right? You made a point that, you know, we were talking about the outsourcing of help. Historically, white people know they can outsource help. We have such a hard time. So I'm not going to say we have a hard time. We spend a lot of time talking to the moms that we work with about postpartum doulas. So the birth doula part, that's a whole wall breakdown conversation. Once we get through there and we say, hey, we're also going to give you a postpartum doula, they're like, what?
Do I want somebody in my home? Like, who is this?
No, it's not even that. As Black women, people don't give us help.
Right.
That's not a thing. I have had to tell one of our families, like on the phone, because we recognized that she was somewhat dodging us. And I felt like it had something to do with money. And so I contacted her and I said, listen, I need you to know that we are not going to suddenly send you some invoice or ask you for money or say, hey, by the way, you owe us $75 for that donor breast milk that we gave you, or, you know, you forgot to pay for your doula or whatever have you. And I could hear this like sigh of relief. I was like, when we say your services are free, that's what we mean. But it's so unfamiliar to the Black community and Black women particularly. We are the helpers in our community. People don't help us. It's just not a thing. Okay. So what we do, the way we've designed the model, we is I. The way we
it's me.
The design that I came up with was, what if we just gave her the village up front? So when families come to us, they are assigned a birth doula, a postpartum doula, and a breastfeeding peer counselor. All of these people become a part of her world immediately. This way she understands, okay, if you have questions, if let's say she comes to us, she's 5 months pregnant. So we've got some time to spend with you and your birth doula. You guys can come up with some things. When you have questions regarding what's going to happen when the baby gets here, oh my goodness, childcare, going back to work, doing this, doing that, you talk to your postpartum doula. You already have that person, and your birth doula can say, hey, why don't you did you ask such and such about, you know, what her childcare, we have a list of childcare places. We have a list of nannies that we recommend. Nanny is such a weird word for Black people because we have been the nanny. So we are very unfamiliar with hiring a nanny, right? That's something new, again, that we're trying to step into. We deserve luxury as well. We deserve help as well.
Oh my
and
gosh.
why is help?
Yes.
Why is
a
help
luxury?
Considered a luxury?
Exactly.
Right? Why is someone coming in to assist me with my sanity? Why is that considered a luxury?
And
why is that something that I have guilt around?
Totally.
Like,
and also not even just for your sanity, but for your productivity. Like going back to, you know, having your laundry done. Exactly. Like, how were you ever supposed to elevate, you know, the means of your family and invest in your future when you don't even have time to do that You know what I mean? Of course.
Because you're doing all the things, so you don't have
Exactly.
mom guilt, and so somebody's not talking trash about you for having somebody else do your laundry. Yeah. So we provide the village to our moms, and so I think as far as uniqueness goes, that I would have to say that is the most unique part of our model. And then we service the 7 zip codes that are experiencing high Black infant mortality rates for free. And then surrounding zip codes, we serve on a sliding scale. And so with that, with even so 3 people, at most you will pay for 3 people on your support team. The highest cost on our sliding scale is $750. And this is I don't know, if you would put 3 people together, if you had to hire these 3 people individually, you're looking at maybe a $3,000 package.
At minimum.
At minimum. You know, and that's if they're white, because as Black women, we understand that even if we're going to serve Black women at their highest income level, most times we have to take some type of deduction, because there's that I'm still going to be working for a little bit less than you would be working for, because maybe your price can sit at $1,500, while the highest my price may be able to sit at is like $1,800, you know.
Yep. So totally. It's always about what the market can bear, right? What price the market can bear. And in the end, the market that you're working in is just not, there isn't the capacity for that. There aren't the resources for that, which is a big problem. Something that I know I watch all of your stories on Instagram. I love your social media account, the Homeland Heart account. We'll put it in the show notes for sure. Yeah, I love what you guys share. And I love when you speak. You have such a mastery over what the program provides and what the program needs. And that is both the beauty and the cost of being at the center of something that's so complex, right? Because like the thought of handing any pieces of that off to somebody is like, well, how would I even train them? How would they even know? How would I even trust them? So I almost don't even want to tell you that, because I don't want you to feel more pressure that you can't like hand it off. But it is really, I really love it. And something that happened was your car broke down. So you're trying to figure out how to replace the car. And as you and I have discussed, you're in a position of more means than a lot of the people who you're working with, than a lot of your clients, right? And then, so if you consider, you know, you and I talked about some of your goals for 2021, for the upcoming year, for the organization. I would love to know more about how some of the basic needs will impact, like the basic needs of a community will impact healthcare. Because I think that's something that people who don't really understand what structural racism looks like, they don't understand that literally it's like these little building blocks of things that impact the health outcomes of a community. So what are some of your goals for this coming year? And then we'll talk later after that about sort of how we can support you and about our collaboration to
absolutely
make some of those goals attainable.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing is, my car broke down. Obviously a need, because I, as an apprenticing home birth midwife, have to go to people to be a part of their birth story or birth situation. And then we, as community-based health workers, spend our time on the ground, and we're the ones that are visiting homes. Sometimes we provide transportation to our clients to make sure that they get to where they need to go. Right now, especially during COVID, during the pandemic, we have an access to our clients that their doctors don't have, right? So we're really working to fill in the gaps of support. This is more than just clinical care, right? And especially in pregnancy, you've been pregnant before. You need more than clinical care. It's more than, oh, I went to the doctor today, I listened to my baby, the heart rate's great, I'm doing fine, everything is fine, right? And then sure, we could talk about virtual, Zooming each other or FaceTiming each other, but there's just, we can all agree that there's just something about being with somebody one-on-one. So I will say on a side note that we are all trained in COVID for doulas. So we're not just, going out willy-nilly in people's homes. We are trained on how to do that and how that all works. But we have been experiencing a lot of energy recently in the collective around cars. Like my car broke down and my assistant needs some transmission work, and our secretary needs some transmission work, and there's just a lot going on, and these are the people who are serving the collective on a regular basis. Our secretary is actually at a birth right now. When you and I were talking earlier, that was my secretary headed to a birth now. So I have been, one of the things I've just kind of been dreaming up, I close my eyes and I see a fleet of Homeland Heart vehicles that we use to just kind of go out in the community, and we're branded, and the community recognizes that, we're here to help, obviously. So that's one of my major goals there. And then on a smaller scale, just making sure everybody's cars are working properly.
Totally.
Would be fantastic.
What if like a rental car company, I wish there was some way to tap like a rental car company who's like retiring some vehicles or something where it's like, they're not really that used. You know what I mean?
They don't have a whole bunch of miles on them.
Exactly.
They don't mind. I've been reading, I've been Pinteresting a lot, and just kind of reading a lot of articles. Yes. Reading a lot of articles about nonprofits and dealerships, doing different things with nonprofits. So we're kind of working on some things in the background just to see what we may be able to pull off locally. So, keep your fingers crossed. If you happen to be in Nashville and you know some people, please feel free to share this need. And then the other thing that we were working on to get off the ground as soon as possible, really like as soon as January 1, hopefully, is our Mia Stallings Mama Mia Home Birth Scholarship Fund. My eyes are about to do this weird thing where they like make a water and it falls down my face sometimes.
That's weird. My mother-in-law calls that. She goes, "Oh, my eyes are leaking."
Yes. My eyes are about to start leaking in just a second, so just don't mind me.
I get it.
We were working with a young lady in August, and she passed while she was giving birth to her son. And so we have been really kind of wrecking our brains on like, what do we do to honor her? How do we do this? And really acknowledging the fact that Mia was very afraid of giving birth in the hospital that she gave birth in, particularly, but giving birth in the hospital, period. This is something that she voiced to us as a collective. This is also something that she voiced on her social media page. And so knowing that and then seeing the outcome is really, really, it's heavy, I think is really the perfect term for it. So in her honor, we decided to launch a home birth scholarship fund to be able to provide. It's happening.
Take your time, let it leak.
To be able to provide access to home birth for Black moms in the city. Yes, the system needs fixing, but we don't have time for that.
No.
And so the way we feel at the collective is if we could just pull our moms out of the hospitals for a second while we do the work. I tell my moms, I promise I'm working with Vanderbilt. I promise I'm working with Centennial. I promise I'm working with these hospitals, but please just stay out of them for now. But we can't ask that of these moms when they don't have access to home births. I mean,
home birth is so hard to access in this country. The only way you can
insurance won't cover it.
So I think, just really briefly, I just want to give any listeners, any watchers here, sort of like a little primer on home birth in America, because it's such a foreign thing to a lot of people so basically, and it's so scary to a lot of people, right? You know, you and I take for granted that people understand that home birth, especially for certain communities, is in fact much, much safer than the hospital, and honestly for everybody. So the best birth outcomes in the world come out of the Netherlands. The Netherlands has a primarily home-based birth system, but it's in network with the hospitals. So if someone needs to transfer, they will transfer. If somebody risks out of a home birth beforehand, then they plan to give birth in the hospital. Now, there are no epidurals at home, etc. There's no pain medication. I think that they sometimes use nitrous at home, and I think some home birth midwives are starting to do that in America too, which is just like laughing gas that you would get at the dentist. But just purely by taking away the pain medication from the process, you do actually take away a lot of other factors that can be very complicating in labor. So that's one issue. But the issue is that you have better birth outcomes at home births, but the system does not cover them financially in America. So in America, if you want a home birth, you pay out of pocket. That's going to cost you anywhere, depending on where you are, from $4,000 to $12,000 out of pocket. New York City, it's $10,000. I had a home birth here in 2007. Like, when was that child born? In 2017. That's correct. My kids' birthdays are 7/23/17 and 7/27/13. And I'm always like calling in the wrong prescriptions for them. I'm like, this isn't fair for like a non-numbers person. So everyone's like, are you sure that like the newborn has an inhaler? I'm like, yeah, no, sorry.
No, wrong birthday.
That's the other one. Okay. So, but what happens, there are these loopholes that, again, in some states, but it takes so much education. So there was a big push to get home birth recognized as an option, but only on Medicaid.
Yep. That was the sister song, the sister song paper.
Ancient song, Doula. So
ancient song, yeah.
So I was able, thank goodness, I would never have been able to afford that otherwise, but I was on that kind of healthcare. I got that kind of healthcare for my pregnancy, and it was fabulous because I was able to have this home birth. But the number of hoops I had to jump through to even figure that out, to work the system, the amount of paperwork, phone calls, etc., to get that paid for.
The right codes, you got to do it all on time. It's terrible. And then
insanity
with Medicaid, so I had my daughter at home in 2018, and I paid out of pocket $300 because I had Medicaid. And while my provider had figured out how to get my care paid for, I think the short end of the stick, I think she got the short end of the stick as the provider, because they don't pay as much out to the provider for pay or something. Like there's some backwards, like they'll pay for it, but they don't pay the midwife. So like your services are covered by insurance, but the midwife is basically attending your birth for free at that point. And it's like, with this, and again, this is why I'm like, in America, we love to have meetings about some stuff, but we don't want to make moves, because all the meetings and all the statistics show us, like you said, better birth outcomes at home. Then we're running these statistics about how much maternal mortality is costing us as an economy. So we literally have the problem and the solution and this major gap in between. And it's like, as thinking people, I assume, we should be able to do this thing, should we not? Like, it just doesn't doesn't make any sense. And then we're all like, oh, what do we do? And at this point in my work, like, I have to almost preface all of my statements in these meetings with, excuse my frustration, but I've been in this same meeting for 2 years and we're still talking about the same thing. You guys don't actually want to fix the problem. You're already making it clear that you don't actually want to fix the problem. Again, with and we struggle with, like you said, writing specific programming for what it is we do. We cover the needs of the community that we work with. And that's really all I can write as far as what our programs are, because one day we may have a need for a mom that needs a birth village. Okay, we give her that. The next day we have a need for somebody that needs emergency housing. I'm not going to write in my bylaws that we're an emergency housing program, because we're not. But if I'm working with a mom as her doula, and I find that she needs emergency housing, and
then you're going to figure that out,
and there's no other way to move on that, I'm going to figure out how to make sure she has the housing that she needs. So it is this, like, we struggle with the grant process, because
how do you explain? Right. Because it's like, there's no grant that's just like all the things. We need a grant for all the things.
Right. So what we have been blessed enough to experience, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah.
But we have been blessed enough to receive, you know, small grants and small funding, and even large funding that has been unrestricted funding that allows us to move however we need to move to make sure that the needs of our community are met. I mean, we have a grocery delivery account. If our moms need groceries, we type the numbers in and do the thing, and then it shows up at their door.
Kristin,
like,
you're amazing. The amount of red tape and, like, frankly, ass kissing you must have had to do.
Cutting all that. Oh no, and you know what? So, and that's another thing I tell people. I got here being the person you see right here. There is no ass kissing.
Good.
More than anything, it has been actually a lot of shit talking.
Good.
And people are like, okay,
they're like,
maybe.
Cool. Here you go. You seem like you know what you're talking about, and like you're not going away. Here you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's how I got into conversation with the hospital that Mia passed at. And it really was like and I didn't realize I had this reputation in the community, but I kind of like it. I ended up talking to their administrator, and she was saying to me on the phone, she said, yeah, I had heard about you before, you know, people have talked to me about you before and said that we should meet. And she said, but when I found out that we were having a call now, I was like, you know, it went from this, oh, Kristin's so great, you should meet her, to Kristin wants to talk to you. And it's like, oh shit. And that's kind of how my reputation is. Like, if I want to talk to you as an administrator, yes, we got some stuff to cover. We have some problems. Yeah. And so it is that. But I will say again, I've worked my ass off for that. And that is one of the incentives that my doulas get when they come to Homeland Heart. Is that they get those boots on the ground connections that you don't get when you go off to train with Dona, and then you come back to Nashville and you're like, oh, I want to help people. And then you run into a problem at the door of the hospital. And it's like, you know, now you're at risk of not being able to serve your client because you don't have, you know, any type of buffer or whatever. But we've run into those situations, and I'm like, please hold, let me make a phone call. And then I call my doulas back, and I'm like, okay, you're free to go. Keep walking. You know, it is that. And it really, it's taken me, let's see, my son is 6 years old. So it's been 5 years of creating those connections in the community and really letting people know that, like, I'm not backing down from this problem. I've been, you know, in these Metro Health Department meetings and state health department meetings, I'm always the one that's like, hey, does anybody else see the big black elephant in the room or no? Yeah. Because I'm here to address it. But
I'm not going away.
Like, I haven't heard anybody say anything about the Black women. So let's go ahead and spend 5-10 more minutes talking about that. Okay.
Great.
And you know, it's worked. It has worked, and it is a lot of the first funding opportunity that we got denied for. My first mind was to say, okay, what can I change? To make us more available, more eligible for funding in the future. And it was indeed the gentleman that I spoke to at the particular office that said, no, you don't change anything. You just stay the course. This is not your opportunity. He was like, he told me, he said, this is not your funding opportunity. What you are doing is going to change our community for generations to come. And you have to keep doing it the way you're doing it. And so that really was like my first motivation to, like, really keep, you know, stick with it. Like, we are Black women who are supporting Black women only. Once we get the Black women problem situated, then we might be able to open up to some other people. But right now, this is what's happening. This is serious. Yeah. No, I don't think that I think that much in the same way that there are all sorts of programs that are. Sorry, I'm going to sneak off camera for a second, but I can hear you. You and I both are. My
Is that
daughter's
someone at my front
crying.
door? Okay,
I don't know what's
I'm going to
happening.
pause this and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about our collaboration.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay. All right. And we're back. Woo! Okay. So after a little like momming, because #COVID. All right. So Kristin, you've given us a really comprehensive understanding of Homeland Heart, of the needs that you are meeting in your community, and the challenges that you guys face both systemically and also within your own community as a result of the systemic racism that is just part of American culture and American history. Mm-hmm. And how that's impacting birthing families. Now, how can we help? You and I have made a bit of a plan, which I think we're both excited about. I know I'm very excited about it. We are going to do a deck drive, a birth deck drive for Homeland Heart. We want to get decks into the hands of your birthing families, of your doulas, so that people have fresh decks to use with their families. And so in this deck drive, we are going to create a product on our Shopify page, on our birthdeck.com page, that people can purchase, which will purchase a deck for Homeland Heart. Glow this is a nonprofit donation. And when you guys buy this deck, so you can write that off. And if you need some kind of evidence of that, do we do that?
Sure. If they need I think like if it's under a certain dollar amount, you don't actually have to have like the report. But if you're like, if you're one of those people, we can make that happen for you. It's not a problem. We have QuickBooks, so we can send up a little something.
So if that's something you need, let us know. But rest assured that you are going to be providing a really important tool for this fantastic organization. And we're going to try to get them as many decks as they could possibly use in the years to come. So check our shop. You'll see our Homeland Heart donation deck. And we will let you know, right, Kristin? We'll give some little updates on that over the coming months.
Yes, we will. Thank you in advance.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys so much for helping us to spread the word of the birth deck and all of the good word.
The good word of the birth deck.
God, how self-important. I hate myself.
That's going to offend somebody, but oh well.
Sure, it sure is, but here we are. Why stop now? Okay, you guys, thank you all so much for this conversation. I hope that you've been able to follow along on this ride. Kristin, you're so awesome. Thanks for being my friend. You're great.
Thank you.
I'm learning from you.
I appreciate it. Bye.